for effective prompting. Andy has this somewhat, similar type of thing as a carousel in his LinkedIn, and that's what we want to step through today is what these techniques are specifically. So, Andy, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah. So as we dive into this particular section, the first thing we need to baseline off is what is a prompt? And a prompt is basically a request or a question or an ask of the generative AI system. And in our case, we're going to be mainly working with Copilot here today. So when you go to Copilot, it's going to be what you're asking it to do. For most users, when you start off with this, the very first time, you're going to look at it like you do a search engine, and you're going to ask it something along the lines of what you would put into a search box. Some of you are a little bit more experienced, so you might do some search syntax. You might insert an or, a not, an asterisk. You might put things in quotes. But you're going to quickly find that it's a little bit smarter than a search engine because it's a natural language model. You can talk to it like you would John or I. So you can ask it a question and you can give it some context. You can ask it a question and you can tell it how you want the output to be returned. You can ask an initial question to kind of baseline what kind of information that you want, and then you can iterate on that through a conversation and you can get the output or the results that you're looking for, or you can get pretty close to it. But when you prompt, you're simply asking the service to return information. But how you prompt matters. The words that you use, the format that you use, the order that you put it all together, those things really matter. In the Copilot world, and we'll bring this up on the screen in just a second, when you prompt, Microsoft has some best practices that you want to apply to prompting. They recommend that you have a goal in mind. What do you want Copilot to do? What kind of information do you want it to return? Then the context. Why do you need it? What's involved? What process? What people? From there, what are your expectations? How should Copilot respond to fulfill the request that you're asking of it? And then the source. What's the source of the information? Do you have any samples or examples or documentation that you want to point out? And I want to just expand on source just a little bit. The primary source that you're going to get out of something like Copilot is the data that it's actually trained on. So it's been trained based off of publicly available information and Microsoft searched information. That's the primary source of Copilot, the data that's been trained on. Typically, there's a cutoff date on that. So that means something that may have come to light in the last couple of months and gone viral might not necessarily be available as part of the data that Copilot was trained on. So that's the first primary source. The second source that you're going to have when you're working with Copilot is you have the ability to extend into a web search. So in Microsoft's case, they would be using Bing search. They would extend the training module that they are the trained module that they have to include web results, and then they'll run that through the Copilot service and the LLM and return information. But if you're in an enterprise environment, Copilot can extend through the Microsoft Graph to content that you have access to, things like documents stored in OneDrive, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, information that's associated with Outlook, like in emails and calendaring. But it's only things that you have permission and access to that it's going to bring back as part of that conversation. So defining the source as part of your prompt can be really important, because if you're in an enterprise environment and you search for onboarding handbook, there might be 100 of those across all the different business units in your organization. You would want to be specific and narrow it down to a certain kind. So this is what we're talking about here. What John's got up on the screen is you have your goal, you have your context, you have your expectations, and your source. What we want to teach you how to do today is how to put this together in kind of a meaningful way, a prompt, so that you can get back from Copilot the information that you're expecting, or information along the lines of like what you're looking for to get started and to get over that blank page.
Yeah. As you were explaining that, I was feverishly finding the link for it. I got that in the chat as well. But yeah, those are the four kind of ingredients, and that's what makes up the thing that's called a prompt, right? You're writing prompts, or you're you're sending requests. I think I explained this in the last one that we did, where I was talking about the idea that, like, don't think of it as like a technical like command prompt. Think of it as a creative writing prompt academically, right? And it's not supposed to be a technical thing because we're using natural language. It is, I'm going to inspire you, AI, to come back with a response, and I need to write a good prompt like a teacher would write a good prompt as well. So these prompting techniques, that's called prompt engineering. And it takes time. It's a muscle that you have to exercise, because as Andy said, like, we're used to speaking like semantic search language and talking to Google for the last 20 years, or Bing for the last however many years. But like, we're not used to talking to it like you would talk to your kids and get them to do something for you. It's